Welcome everyone to Safer Sim webinars. Today we have Dr. Justin Mason from the University of Iowa presenting on the mapping comprehension of advanced driving assistance systems across different road users. Justin, sorry, I'm going to hand the floor to you.
Thank you, Don. So I'll start by acknowledging the co-authors on the presentation. We have Cher Carney, John Gaspar, Woon Kim, Ali Romo, and Bill Horry, which most of them are attending now. So if you have any difficult questions, feel free to ask them. All right, so I'll jump into the project now. I'll also acknowledge the cooperative research program between Safer Sim and then AAA Foundation. So at a high level, we had two objectives for this project. One would be to characterize road users in the United States that had a weak understanding and compare them to those that had a strong understanding of advanced driver assistance systems, or otherwise known as ADAS. And then project objective 2 would be to identify clusters of drivers based on results from the quality of their mental model. So looking both at how much knowledge did they have about the systems, as well as their confidence in their knowledge, and then exploring those factors that distinguish the clusters. So some of the motivation, I won't have too much about the introduction or background other than drivers have poor understanding of ADAS, even when it's equipped on or in their vehicle. They also have limits in their understandings, and that can translate to difficulty on the road, deficits in driving performance, or confusion with their ADAS. And then this is kind of a foundational point to make, is that awareness would be the first point. People should be, or drivers should be aware that they have ADAS in their vehicle or that they don't have ADAS in their vehicle. They then need to have an understanding of what the systems are capable of doing and not capable of performing. And then they need to have confidence in how to use the system, which then ideally would lead to safe use. And then there's a great spot or a great opportunity for ADAS education to help inform all of those points, whether it be awareness, understanding, confidence, or use. So just a little bit into the methods, we developed a massive item pool of a little bit 162 items from surveys, from literature, and then those that were self-generated by the team to kind of get at the constructs that we wanted to tap. After that, we reduced it down to about 90 items, and those represented really 4 different areas: demographics and driving experience, prior experience with ADAS, which would be part of their mental models and their understanding, learning about ADAS, and then perceptions of technology and of driving. And each section contained a brief description so that ideally we were all speaking the same language, and we tried to reduce the amount of jargon in the survey. So within that survey, there was a mental model assessment that contained 19 true or false items, 12 for adaptive cruise control, and 7 for lane keeping assistance, which we generalized to represent lane centering or lane keeping, just depending on which system they had. Then for each item, they ranked their self-confidence from 0, no confidence, to 3, high confidence. And then from those values, we calculated dependent variables, which are outcome values. And those were grouped together to represent their knowledge of ADAS and then their confidence in their knowledge of ADAS. And that would be represented from 0 to 100%, 100% being a complete understanding or complete confidence. So we deployed the survey. First, we took an address-based sampling approach. We waited 3 months, and we received 437 responses with a response rate of 1%, which was not ideal. So from there, we pivoted and we used Prolific, which is an online platform, to sample the rest of our participants. And from there, we received 2,311 that agreed to participate, and then 2,199 that completed the survey. And that was all done within 10 days, which is very quick and very convenient for us. The final sample consisted of a little bit over 2,500 adults in the US, which would be representative for the US population for age, sex, and race. So just a few sample characteristics. The survey took about 13 minutes, so it wasn't too cumbersome for our respondents. It ranged from the ages of the adults ranged from 18 to 93 years old, with a mean of 45 or 46 years old. It's about half split between female and males for our respondents. 76% reported being white, and then driving was their primary mode of transportation. Remarkably, 62% reported not owning adaptive cruise control, and 72% reported not owning lane keep assistance. And then there were a few that were uncertain, which ranged from about 7 to 8%, depending on the system. So all of these dots on this beautiful map just display where the respondents completed the survey at that time. They reported where they were staying, and this is their city and state location. So you can see that we have a pretty good distribution throughout the US we did have a respondent from at least each state, but you can see that there's quite a few missing from Montana and Wyoming and whatnot in the central of US. So the first objective was to compare weak versus strong understanding. So what we did was we created quartiles. So you could think of that as taking $1 and splitting it into 4 quarters. We took the weakest quarter down here in the purple, and we compared it to the strongest quarter, or the strongest 25% of our samples. So this way we could really get at without having any crossover or touching in between the middle. So we removed the middle 50%. We just compared the bottom 25% to the top 25%. And then up here is just a distribution of age. Down here is age. So you can see that they were a little bit younger for those that were in the strong understanding group, and a little bit older for those in the weak understanding group. But it was about a difference of 5 or 6 years, which wasn't a big difference. And then up here, you can see that confidence overlapped between the two groups. So you can see that they had similar confidence in their understanding, whether they were categorized as strong understanding or weak understanding. So I'm going to fly through objective 1 just because it really led us to objective 2. But the main differences that we found would be that the strong understanding group preferred to learn via trial and error. So they like to really test out their ADAS, and that's what informed their mental model. And then those in the weak understanding, or that bottom 25% or the bottom quartile, preferred to read the owner's manual, and that's how they reported learning about ADAS. As you can see, that age gap was about 6 years between the weak understanding and strong understanding group. ADAS, or their confidence in their ADAS understanding, was very, very similar, about 51 to 53. And then they also had similar ratings in their self-assessed knowledge, which would just be very similar to their confidence. It's a self-efficacy rating of how much do you think you know about lane keep assistance, or about ACC, or about ADAS. And then they also all reported having similar importance. So they thought that most people should understand they should understand ADAS prior to using it. So one of the findings, which we didn't include in the report, but while putting this together, I thought I should probably present this, would be that there was a difference in the reported frequency of lane keep assist. So they had those in the weak understanding group reported using lane keep assist almost every time, about with a frequency of 40%, which was quite different than those in the strong understanding group, and very much different than how often they used ACC in their vehicle while driving. So it might be a little terrifying to see that the highest amount of use is going to be coming from the weak understanding group. But really, that's an incomplete picture. So what we did in objective 2 was we clustered everyone based off of their understanding and their confidence in their understanding. And that resulted in 4 different clusters. So we had weak confident. Sorry, let me go back. We had weak confident, meaning they had a weak mental model or a weak understanding, but they were confident. So that represented a low understanding score, but a high confidence score. Then we had weak unconfident, meaning they still had low understanding, but they also had low confidence, followed by strong confident, meaning they had a strong understanding and they were confident. And then the 4th cluster was strong understanding, but they were not confident in their understanding. And just intuitively, someone may really understand something, but if they don't think that they understand something, that can have implications for if they use that technology, or if they, depending on what we're talking about, they just may not get full use out of, say, ADAS or ACC. So this is just kind of what the data looked like when we displayed it using these box plots. So we basically grouped together their understanding in lane keep and then in ACC, and that was their overall ADAS knowledge score. And then ADAS confidence would be a combination of their lane keep confidence and then their ACC confidence. So here would be a weak confident cluster, here's strong confident cluster here, and you can kind of see how those scores aggregate to the right to give an overall score for how confident are they in their understanding of ADAS, and then how much do they know about ADAS, or what's their knowledge level or score. So some of the big takeaways or some of the key points that emerged would be that males tend to be very, very confident. They represented 62% of the weak confident cluster or the strong confident cluster, and that was about 55%. So males were overrepresented in the confidence clusters, or those that had high confidence. And then a few other patterns that emerged would be that it also ended up leading to other constructs. So their driving self-efficacy, or how confident they are in their driving abilities, they also reported higher values in the confident clusters. So it's about 8.4 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. And that was a bit higher than the other unconfident clusters, which was around 7.4. And then for driving safety, it was also they reported a little bit higher values, but it was relatively marginal. So when we're looking at the ownership of ACC and lane keep assistance, we have ACC on the left facet over here, and then on the right facet, we have lane keep assist. You can see that the unconfident clusters reported that they were not sure if they owned ACC at a higher rate than the other confident clusters on the top portion up here and the bottom portion. So the blue represents that they were not sure if they had ACC in their vehicle. And then the blue over here represents if they were not sure if they had lane keep assist in their vehicle. And then you can see that those with a weak understanding but were very confident reported owning ACC for the highest proportion. Here for ACC, and then here for lane keep assist compared to any of the other clusters. So as you can see at the top, we have understanding crossed out, and we're really focused on looking at this trend of confidence. We could see that the weak, both confident clusters, the strong confident and then the weak confident, they had higher self-reported knowledge of ADAS. So they thought that they knew more about ADAS for both ACC and lane keep compared to the unconfident clusters over here. And then they also reported that it's really important that people understand ADAS in the strong or in the confident clusters. And then they also, again, were more confident in finding ADAS educational material. So you can really start to see this trend of confidence being maybe more of a trait of the individual rather than just their confidence and understanding. So we're going to give you a brief break from all the figures and tables. And I just want to highlight that this trend in confidence was consistent. It continued for trust in ACC and lane keep assistance. So how much did they trust these systems? How familiar they were. They reported being more familiar with ACC and lane keep. And then, great question you ask, what about self-reported use of ACC and lane keep assistance? And as you can tell over here, both the weak confident at the top portion up here and the bottom portion down here, the strong confident, they reported that they almost they reported using ACC almost every time when they get in their vehicle, and they reported using lane keep assistance almost every time getting in their vehicle. And that proportion was much higher than the two unconfident clusters in the middle right here. So we're comparing about 35% and 27% to these much lower proportions of about 8 and 11%. So some of the other things that emerged, or some of the other trends that emerged regarding education would be that those confident clusters up here, we have weak confident and strong confident. They both reported that they learned about ADAS through trial and error at a much higher percentage than the unconfident clusters. And then they also reported that they read the owner's manual, and that's how they learned about ADAS. But you can see this difference between the weak confident and strong confident right here. So the strong confident group reported learning through trial and error. So they would test their system and learn to see how it worked. Whereas the weak confident cluster, they were more likely to read the owner's manual, and that informed their mental model. Interestingly, the strong unconfident, so they had a strong understanding, but they were not confident in their understanding. They 25% reported never learning about ADAS. And then something else to note is very important that there's a calibration in the mental model between the knowledge and then your confidence in your knowledge. So we want these to be related to one another, so that ideally somebody may use that system or not, or be less likely to misuse that system. So in this study, out of the 2,500 plus respondents, ACC understanding was not related to confidence, and lane keep assist understanding was also not related to confidence. This is a little bit shocking. We haven't seen this before, but we haven't had this big of a sample. We have calibrated mental models before using training. So this is among ACC, and we've shown at DSRI that you can improve both confidence and knowledge, but we're not sure to quite what extent we can improve confidence, because we haven't done pre and post testing to assess our training. So just important concepts to know regarding consumer education. There are a lot of variables at play. We could kind of talk about these toppings that we use in the burger here. Format, so what type of medium is it presented in? Is it online? Is it a PowerPoint? Is it a video? We have timing, we have frequency, so is it just a one-off, or is it every week? Is it a just-in-time intervention? As well as how is it organized? But really the most important thing would be the meat of the burger, which would be the content. So what are we providing should be the first point that we're focused on. After that, we can make it pretty. We can decide to move things around, make it more convenient, maybe improve feasibility or improve adherence and people wanting to consume the content. So some of the content that we found that was important through the items that we tested would be purpose. So what's the purpose of ACC? What's the purpose of lane keep assist? What system, what is it designed for? As well as procedural knowledge. So after knowing the purpose, you have to understand how to engage it or turn it on in your vehicle. And then you need to know how it functions, and then some of the limitations of when and where it can't handle operating properly. And then last but not least, what is your responsibility while it is operating? And it's a lot more complicated now to think about it at the lower levels of automation. It might become easier once we're kind of in the hands-on, hands-off level 3, level 4, and level 5, the higher levels of automation. So a very important point to consider would be the user. We need to think about how these consumers want to learn about this, the ADAS in their vehicle, and then how they want to learn to use the ADAS in their vehicle. So we only looked at one perspective here by clustering adults based off of their understanding and confidence, but there are other ways to approach this. So here are the key takeaways or conclusions. And this would be representative of the US, especially among our 2,500 respondents. So we have the biggest groups are represented here. So about 34% of the US would be potentially strong confident. So they should have a strong understanding of ACC and lane keep assist and be confident in their understanding. Whereas the second largest proportion was 26%, and that would be the far end of it, where they have a weak understanding and they're not confident. Gaps in knowledge are relatively easy to address. We think we can hammer that out in the content and develop consumer education focused on those gaps in knowledge. It might be a little bit more stubborn to improve or to alter someone's confidence, or it just may take more time or interaction with the system, as it tends to be a bit more stable. Although we do have some evidence with smaller sample size that confidence and understanding can be increased via training. So another conclusion, adults primarily learn about ADAS via trial and error, reading their owner's manual, whether that's easily digestible or not, accessing information on the internet, such as videos, or at the dealership. Education prior to trial and error may expedite the learning process and mitigate risk. And that might be important to then start with education and then let people use the system. One size does not fit all. Mental model assessment maybe could be a useful tool in informing the gaps in knowledge and confidence. And then the education could be customized to target those deficits or gaps in knowledge and confidence. So for next steps, we have further exploration of this data set. We could start filtering and making groups based off of those that actually have ACC or lane keep assist in their vehicle, and we could develop a database to compare who has ACC and who doesn't, because all of the respondents reported the year, make, and model of their vehicles. We could also look at RUCA codes, which is kind of a nice breakdown of where they live, if it's rural, if it's urban, if they have access to hospitals. There's different categories for RUCA codes. But yeah, we could get at that to see if that plays a factor in how these individuals would like to learn about ADAS. And then last but not least, it also provides great opportunity for collaboration because we haven't really maxed out this data set or published everything that we plan on publishing quite yet. We also need to validate our mental models, which is why we need to be careful in drawing comparisons between people's understanding of adaptive cruise control and their understanding of lane keep assist. The mental models might be different. They may have different difficulties. So one questionnaire might be a little bit more difficult than the other one. And that might be the reason for the differences in scores. So we can't necessarily directly compare ACC with lane keep assist to see which one is better understood until we do validate the mental model assessment. And then eventually we can start looking at the feasibility and efficacy of ADAS education and training among these different cluster types. And we could compare formats of education after establishing the content. But really, we need to focus on what content are we providing to the driver or to the road user. So yeah, thank you for joining for this presentation. I have time. I'll stick around. Hopefully there's questions. If not, you're more than welcome to read a brief 60-page report, which is now published on the AAA Foundation website.
Thank you, Justin. There was a question in the chat. You may have addressed it during your presentation. Did all the participants have these ADAS features in their cars?
Nope, great question though, and I do have that in here. So about 62% did not own ACC, and about 72% did not own lane keep assist.
Thank you. You are all welcome to, thank you, Bill, for putting the link to the report in the chat. You're all welcome to unmute yourselves if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you so much for this awesome presentation. My name is Kelly Reardon. I run our driver education program in Columbus, Ohio, and I teach our novice drivers as well as our mature operators, we call them.
Oh, Kelly, you froze.
People should be showing them this technology. Do you find that I know that there's opportunity there, but do you find that there's not a lot of ownership in teaching their sales team to share these? And it could be a short video. We show these videos. The foundation obviously puts on amazing videos to show each of these technologies. Is this something that we've considered talking to these vehicle manufacturers about sharing with their consumers? And
Yeah,
I'm sorry, it was a little bit late. You might have shared that already, so my
no,
apologies.
no, this is a great question. It's definitely something we're working on. In a few of our other projects, we're interviewing or reaching out to directly to different dealerships. It's a very difficult question. I think it obviously depends on who you're interacting with there. If there's any formal or required training. The manufacturer itself, some of them have different aims or focuses and are a little bit more geared towards safety. I don't know if I should call out specific manufacturers here. It's probably not my place to do that. But no, I think it depends. I do think that they're becoming, or educational material is becoming more accessible. So we're starting to see a bit more on YouTube, and just more videos and other interactive or like I guess active learning attempts. So there seems to be a pivot from the owner's manual, but I wouldn't say that it's becoming too formal quite yet. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. Did I address most of that? I feel like there were a few questions or a few ways
That's
I could
okay.
spin that.
Yes, I just didn't know if there was any thought about maybe as a foundation putting something out there, just us, this is made available to any dealership. Of course, it's going to vary from one vehicle to the next, to a degree, but something's better than nothing. I know that my students, especially in the 60 and over group, really love those videos. They said, oh, that's how that works. And I think that aha moment is so great to witness, because then they're not as intimidated by that technology. So, share, I used to be a leasing broker too. So I told them that's our responsibility as salespeople to really tell you all that there is to know about the car that you'll be purchasing. So don't be afraid to ask them and put them on the spot. Make sure that they know how something works. So, that's a Kelly thing. I don't say that's a AAA thing, but I say that's a Kelly thing. But go back and ask those salespeople how certain technologies work on that vehicle. They should know this stuff. They should absolutely know it.
Yeah, and that way it's specific to the vehicle or to that system that you may be buying or purchasing. So I think that's nice rather than it being too general, and maybe some of these, sometimes like ACC and Lane Keep, they're paired together. Sometimes they're not paired together. Sometimes one needs to be on first. So it does become complicated, but I think we're also focused on like a new vehicle purchase rather than a used vehicle purchase, and how much could go wrong in that avenue as well. But I don't know if anyone from the foundation, if Bill feels like he wants to chime in and say anything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to say also that what's your level of confidence that the salespeople understand all these features in these cars? I mean, they keep adding them, and it's very dynamic. And the thing I say is, well, when does the average American get their driver's training? In their teens. And then years and decades go by and the technology changes, and there is a obvious big gap there. I mean, I see dealers investing in hiring a person that's like their tech person that explains things to the drivers, but it seems like it's kind of a Band-Aid at this point in time. And so that's why I asked the question, do all these participants actually have these features in their cars? So to me, the next question I would have would be to just take that data and slice out the people that have that technology and look to see what that is. And is that data posted on the AAA Foundation website?
I don't believe it's posted yet. I do think that we're wrapping up cleaning and organizing it, and creating a data dictionary for it so that it is accessible. But yeah, I think that would be our next point of attack. The difficult thing too is not all of I don't know if we'll get all of that information out of the year, make, and model, because it also could be the trim level, and there could be some variation for if they do have ACC or lane keep on that model. But no, yeah, I think you're spot on, and that's the next good question that we can handle in this data set. I think just roughly speaking, we have about 1,200, so about half of the respondents had vehicles that were 2016 or newer. And I think that's a decent place to start as far as prevalency of these technologies. But yeah, I haven't started to break into that quite yet.
Okay. Yeah, because when I saw the numbers, I would not be, I had to say, I wouldn't have been surprised if all those people had the features and there was that lack of awareness. But I'm not on the outside. I haven't been doing the research as deeply as you, so I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'll jump in too, just because you mentioned the foundation, Justin. David, yeah, we've done some past studies too, where the entire sample has been documented as actual owners of the technology. You see similar patterns too, where yeah, they think they have the technology and they don't, and they misunderstand it, and so on. And then coming back to Kelly's comments, great ideas, and yeah, we're hard at work. As are the team at Iowa and other places, just trying to say what can we do to fill these gaps or narrow these gaps, and yeah, different approaches, including video, and how do you administer that, and where, and when, and how. These are all questions that we're juggling with right now. But I'm glad we're kind of seeing the path forward as you are in terms of really what to do about these deficits.
Yeah, it's future shock in the car for the consumer.
I think we also mentioned that there can be too much information provided. So we want to make sure that we're not, a lot of us are lifelong learners. We want to learn as much as we can about a lot of this technology, but not everyone may want that level of detail. So it's finding the sweet spot of like, what's the most useful information we can provide? Is it specific to their system? And then figuring out if they're getting that message, if they're understanding what we're putting out there. So yeah, it's going to be a productive and a busy space for quite a while. I don't think there's a silver bullet for this one.
Looking forward to the next level of research here. This is really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. We'll let everybody go. You will all receive an email when this has been posted on the SaferSim YouTube channel. Justin, do you have a slide with your contact information that you can flip to?
Yeah, I do, and I'm happy to share this presentation if that'd be beneficial.
That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah,
That would be great. Thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you. No, this is fun work. I mean, this is difficult, but it's fun as well.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
thank you, everyone.